Have you ever struggled with knowing something was wrong, but not knowing how to fix it? Trying to fix the feeling with cleaning your space, sleeping, doing yoga, meditation, drinking caffeine, all the things people recommend, but somehow it just doesn't help you feel all that better. Everyone needs therapy. It makes us better people. It's the missing tool that helps you build healthy habits that do fix the feelings and prepare you for the changes and future feelings that you're bound to experience. Therapy makes us better people to be around for ourselves and for the general public. Learning about your own condition and ways to cope gives a better opportunity for long lasting and healthy relationships. Introvert or extrovert, we all want relationships and the impacts that our relationships with others to be positive. No one wants to be perceived as distasteful, incompetent, or distressing in any of our relationships. Emotional regulation is a much undermined skill that I'm sure would greatly impact your barista. I am on a constant strive to be someone that is pleasant to be around while also being happy myself. Being happy has been a goal of mine since childhood, and being perceived positively is a very important kind of like part of who I am. I diagnosed myself as a people pleaser. I really like to make sure that the people around me are always doing well, and it was one of those things that I also had to work through in therapy. Um, as such, when I realized I wasn't getting to where I wanted to be, against the opinions of most of the people around me, mainly the people in my life at the time, including my mom and my dad, and friends at the time would even there was a stigma around it by the time that I was starting to think about starting. Um, and it was against a lot of kind of like the norm, so I decided to do it for myself. Today I'm going to introduce you to issues that I experienced and how it led me to finding solutions through therapy, and how you can all see therapy as a possibility for you, possibly. I want you to improve your relationships both with yourself and with others. I wouldn't mind you all making my job as your barista a little easier as well. It's always nice to have someone who can communicate clearly and without getting fired up. And usually that's just something that happens when someone's had a bad day, but if you've had a bad day and you talk to a therapist, your day's bound to get better. First, I'll talk about what led me to beginning therapy, then I'll discuss my actual process and experience of therapy, and finally, I'll look at how I dealt with a recent disturbance in my life using the skills learned during my therapy sessions. First, let me discuss my mindset and the barriers I was experiencing before starting therapy. I came from graduating high school during the pandemic to entering college a little after the pandemic. We were still mainly online, but there were some opportunities for going back into and on campus, and attempting to return to that normal life. It took a really heavy toll on my mental health. I was really struggling with ADHD at the time, unknown to me until later, when I had help with my therapist and we worked through that. But before, it was just something that was wrong and frustrating me. I was struggling to do work. I was really struggling to focus and continue to do the things I really loved. I felt really lost. I felt like days would go by without accomplishments or feelings. I wouldn't be able to talk to my friends or my family very well. I kind of cut a lot of connections. Self-work was kind of in the gutter. Physical work was still one of those things that I was trying to get to, and I was just I got stuck in a kind of like all-consuming depression, and it wasn't great. Months passed, years passed. Um, the ADHD at the time had mostly been tamed by the constant expectations of school, and even then, sorry, I'm having allergies. Even then, it was a struggle. I could pass my classes, but I wasn't doing great. I wasn't excelling at them, even when it was subjects I really enjoyed. Um, and so the symptoms, led me to self-medicating, as many people do, and that, if not monitored, can end up in addiction, self-harm, it can lead to a lot of not great things, and that a lot of people may be doing and not even notice. Mine was caffeine. I self medicated using a large amount of caffeine, 3 to 4 cups a day, every day, and even then I would struggle to accomplish my tasks, so it wasn't even meeting the criteria for getting better. Um, Me and my mom were also in a really bad place at the time. Um, Also, because of my ADHD, I wasn't accomplishing house tasks, cleaning my room, cleaning downstairs, cleaning the dishes, throwing the trash, keeping the house together. I was not doing my part, and I was struggling a lot with that, let alone with school and trying to find work and trying to make money to continue school. And my mom also didn't like the fact that I was taking, myself into my own hands and beginning transitioning. I was very serious about that, and, it was very tense for us. There was a lot of arguments. She is still not on board, but it is what it is. I took my authority and I made it happen. And she would also just kind of say that therapy wasn't a thing that was really an option or needed to be an option. She often would talk about, oh, well, you can do self medicating procedures. Again, the meditating, the cleaning, and I did, and I tried, and I wrote lists, and I took medicine at my own will. I took coffee and lots of it, and it was making me unhealthy. It wasn't a solution to the problem. So it was just a lot of stuff. I wasn't reaching out to my friends and family, and it was just a really, really bad time for me. And that's when, now that I talked about all the scary bits, um, I'm gonna discuss just kind of finding therapy and starting therapy. I wasn't a stranger to the idea of therapy. I'd seen many counselors during my time at school because I was well known for struggling. Um, I recommended therapy to my friends, even though I hadn't personally taken it, because it's one of those things that you're kind of told is an option, but a lot of the people around you can often influence whether or not you take charge and accomplish those tasks to start therapy, because it can be a hurdle. It can be really scary. It can be really difficult. Um, and so I took to therapy when I started it instantly. I was super excited. I'm a very talkative and friendly person, and so I had a lot of fun talking to this other person, telling them my woes, telling them the things I was struggling with, telling them everything that I was feeling, and they would just listen. And not just listen, but they would have solutions. Solutions that someone who's trained as a therapist can give you. We watched videos and started figuring out my ADHD. I got diagnosed, and then we could start getting medicine. I went to see a psychiatrist connected to my therapist, and I got to take Focalin, which is ADHD medication. It was super helpful, really helped me get my stuff together. I took it during the weekdays so that the weekend I could be off and just kind of let myself kind of organically relax, and then could go back on it for the start of the week. It was a really great help and helped me do much better in my classes, start reaching out to people, continue to do the work that I was already trying to do on myself, and kind of put in steps to start trying to move out of my house. I got a job. I was able to keep my job, do really well, get money, and work that through, and it was doing really well. I was living really comfortably for a bit. I was also able to work through my struggle of who I am, what I want, where I'm going, what my goals are, how to get. We talked about college. We could talk about how I'm gonna transfer, what I should transfer into, what are my enjoyments. And it was also just a thing where you can talk to people. You can also go about deep and heavy topics. Again, my heavy topic of my home life. It wasn't great, and I could talk to her about that, and she can offer places to go research, other transgender groups of people that could help me. We went online. We could find areas. We looked at the LGBTQ places in my area. It's not one of those things that I would go out and Google necessarily, but when offered it as a solution, I could take it. And I did. And it really helped. It helped with kind of getting on the road to a healthy and stable transition. I got to, go look at the different options online. I got to look at different pharmacies that I could go to. It was a huge help. And it just really boosted my self confidence and to become someone that I respect in myself through trial and error. Improvement requires failure. It's one of the things that she told me. I can't remember exactly where we saw it, but it's one of those things that really sticks with me. Improvement requires failure. You cannot grow without messing up. And it's one of the things that I continue to keep with me. It really helps, especially with like the guilty conscience I often carry, and so it's something I continue to carry, and that really helped with my most recent situation. Since now we understand the expectations of therapy, my skills kind of use the big kind of overarching thing that sticks with me, and just like my whole life improving, I can now get to where I'm very stable, and how I'm taking therapy out of the office and into my day to day. Recently, a disagreement in my current friend group made me really think about my time during therapy and impacted most of my decisions both during the altercation and after it. For context, in the story, there's my best friend and two other people in our group. One is someone who already had tensions running high because of the way they were handling certain situations, making others in the group feel uncomfortable. His name, we'll say, is Richie. The other person was a friend who I dated, and we agreed to stay friends after, and we'll say his name is Jonah. During a hangout after classes with my best friend Dylan and those two people, they decided to make a bit of a scene. Richie and Jonah told my friend while I was away that they had huge news for me. The news was pertaining to Jonah, my ex, now being in a new relationship. On its own, this is normal. This is something that can be talked about. This is something where, hey, this is happening. It can be a one-on-one conversation. It can be a, hey, this is just what's happening. Great, move on. This would be a very simple thing to get over had it come across in a more natural, normal, and kind way. But when I returned to the group, the information was delivered in a way that seemed intentionally cruel and manipulative. But I took the information and I nodded, said congratulations, and moved on. I believe that their intention was to elicit a response from me, and I think I would have given that response had I not kind of taken the breath and walked away and decided to kind of put that back and deal with it later. Because it's one of those things where I would respect myself better for having a proper response and a proper feeling in my heart for how I feel about that, rather than just going forth and doing the first thing that comes to mind. I don't think that that would have made me proud of myself or feel comfortable. At this point, I already knew I didn't want to be friends with these people. That's not something that I think can be accidentally done, and if it is an accident, then it wasn't something I wanted to continue to have in my life. I really wanted to work on focusing on myself, and so I did. I took care of myself, took care of my stuff, went back, and decided later on, after I had concluded my emotions, my feelings, and exactly how, I was feeling, I placed my boundaries down, wanted to work on my confrontational skills, not avoiding, and I think my therapist would be extremely proud of me for doing a lot of that, because that is not something that came naturally to me. That is thanks to a lot of years of confidence building up, and to have a confidence in myself, and to have confidence that if I fall back, if I make mistakes, I have people who will support me. And those are my closest friends, people who I love dearly. So I decided to end the relationship with the two friends, place boundaries, said, hey, I really don't mess with the way that, you guys did this. And I allowed for exposition. I allowed them to have their say. I disagreed with their say, and so I closed the conversation, left, and that was kind of the end. It was very obvious from their responses in general that it wasn't something that I wanted to continue or push through or kind of. I didn't want to humor it. I wanted to spend my own time with the people who I knew I could trust and I knew had thought about me before and cared about me, because that's what I think friends should be. A couple days after the incident, I decided to work through debriefing and learning from mistakes because, for one, I don't want to have people like that in my life, but for two, I want to be able to grow and know what I did wrong and when I should improve. And so I do think that there was ways that I should improve. As in, I was upset. And I think that I should have taken more time, probably to write out a better response, or to not have allowed for conversation and instead just made it a, hey, I didn't mess with this, I don't want to see you again, sorry, goodbye. And I think that probably would have both felt better to me, been a little less anxiety inducing, and maybe even have just not hit as hard with the people in question. I went in knowing I didn't want any contact with these people, so I was, assured that no matter what, that's just not a relationship I wanted to have. I didn't want to give it fuel, and I think I shouldn't have kind of come forth as hard, mainly because I think it gave them fuel for, instead of listening to me and how I felt and what they had done to me, and instead gave them fuel for the fire for them to kind of dislike or find things wrong in how I portrayed that I was hurt and uncomfortable. So I do wish that I had communicated that better, but now that I know exactly what and where to do better, I can push that forward. Again, just like my therapist said, there is no improvement without failure. You have to fail to see a problem. There has to be a problem to solve. And so I think that I'm going to grow from that situation. I'm going to grow a lot better. And yeah, moving to the moral, doing things for yourself can always be difficult, but it's you who has control of the trajectory of your life and where you use that limited energy. So let's begin to wrap up. I first discussed the dark and self-hating place in my mind and body had been trapped in, then the conscious and personal choice to make moves for success, and lastly, how you can improve in situational awareness, self-preservation, thanks to both knowledge and the practice of coping skills. Taking those breaths, taking steps back, thinking about how you feel and how you want to respond to situations, and just kind of having that moment of pause is so important for communication in general. Going to therapy makes us better. If your therapist doesn't work for you, move on to the next, but you will benefit from the experience, and so will the people around you. I have grown a lot as a person. I've changed a lot of my habits have changed, a lot of my coping skills have changed. And so I think that it really is just a better off situation. Go ahead and make my job easier and go learn healthy communication and healthy coping skills. It'll really help your barista, it'll really help your friends and your family and yourself, because that's the most important thing. Thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.